December 1st, 2018, Vancouver International Airport. A Chinese businesswoman transits between Hong Kong and Mexico. Destination, a series of business meetings in Latin America. But she will never reach her destination. At exactly 11:10 a.m., Meng Wanzhou, Chief Financial Officer of Huawei Technologies, daughter of the company's founder, is intercepted by Canadian police at the request of the United States of America. According to CNN and Reuters in December 2018, the arrest is based on charges of bank fraud and circumventing U.S. sanctions against Iran. But behind this spectacular arrest lies a much deeper war. Because Meng Wanzhou is not an ordinary criminal. She embodies an existential danger for Washington. The loss of global technological control. Today, we dive into the real reason for Western fear of Huawei, and you'll understand why this Chinese company has become the symbol of an irreversible geopolitical shift. From the dramatic arrest of its CFO to cascading 5G bans, from the triumphant return with a made-in-China chip to the discrete domination of global infrastructure, this is not a company story. This is an invisible war.
Let's start from the beginning. Who is Meng Wanzhou? Daughter of Ren Zhengfei, former engineer of the People's Liberation Army, who became founder of Huawei in 1987. Vice chairwoman of the board, chief financial officer, and most importantly, architect of Huawei's international expansion. On December 1st, 2018, as she changes planes in Vancouver, Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers arrest her. According to Wikipedia and CBC News, a U.S. arrest warrant had been issued on August 22, 2018 by the Federal Court of New York. Source: Wikipedia, CBC News, 2018-2021. The charges: bank fraud, conspiracy, violating U.S. sanctions against Iran through a disguised subsidiary named Skycom. But the timing is explosive. That same day, at exactly the same moment, President Donald Trump dines with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in Buenos Aires. The two men are negotiating a commercial truce in their tariff war. The arrest drops like a diplomatic bomb. 9 days later, China retaliates. Two Canadians, Michael Kogrig, a former diplomat, and Michael Spavor, an entrepreneur, are arrested in China on suspicion of espionage. According to the Canadian Encyclopedia, they will remain imprisoned for 1,020 days. Beijing denies any connection, but the message is clear. You touch our tech champion, we take hostages. Take a breath. Understand what's at stake here. This is not simply a legal matter. It's the legal weapon serving a geopolitical strategy. Because behind the accusations of Iranian fraud lies a reality far more worrying for Washington. Huawei is winning the 5G war. In 2018, according to Dell'Oro Group, cited by Wikipedia, Huawei controls 31% of the global telecom equipment market, ahead of Ericsson, 29%, and Nokia, 23%. 5G isn't just a simple internet speed improvement. It's the infrastructure that will support the next revolution: smart cities, autonomous vehicles, connected factories, military defense. Whoever controls the 5G antennas controls the data. Whoever controls the data controls power. And that's exactly what terrifies the West. Meng Wanzhou will remain under house arrest in Vancouver for 1,000 days under $10 million bail. In September 2021, an agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice ends the prosecution. According to NPR and Al Jazeera, she returns to China on September 24, 2021, the same day the two Canadians are released. The parallelism is too perfect to be coincidence. This case wasn't judicial, it was strategic.
May 2019. 6 months after Meng Wanzhou's arrest, Donald Trump signs Executive Order 13873. According to CNN Business and NPR, this order prohibits American companies from using telecom equipment deemed a threat to national security. Huawei is not explicitly named, but nobody is fooled. The same day, the Commerce Department adds Huawei to the Entity List, the American trade blacklist. Immediate consequence, according to Al Jazeera and Roll Call. Google cuts Android access, Intel and Qualcomm cease chip deliveries. All American technology becomes prohibited. The objective is clear: suffocate Huawei, prevent it from making smartphones, block its 5G expansion. But the offensive doesn't stop in the United States. Washington exerts massive diplomatic pressure on its allies. The message to European capitals is brutal. Choose your side, us or China. And it works. July 2020, the United Kingdom yields. According to the British government and the Council on Foreign Relations, London announces the complete ban of Huawei from its 5G networks by 2027. No new equipment can be purchased after December 31st, 2020. The estimated cost? £2 billion and 2 years of 5G deployment delay, according to Computer Weekly. Sweden follows, Australia too, Japan, Poland, Romania, even some Nordic countries. According to the U.S. State Department in July 2020, the list of countries banning Huawei grows. Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Sweden. The official argument everywhere: national security, espionage risks, backdoors in the code. But no concrete evidence is ever presented publicly. And, behind this apparent security panic, a well-oiled mechanism deploys. Under the guise of security, Washington activates its network of alliances, the Five Eyes Group, United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, to isolate Huawei on all continents. Think about this for a moment. If the problem were really technical, why allow Nokia and Ericsson? These two European companies also depend on Asian components and complex supply chains. The truth is simpler and more brutal. This isn't a cybersecurity issue, it's a technological sovereignty issue. Because in 2019, according to Wikipedia, Huawei controls 70% of the African telecom infrastructure market. In Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Huawei is already everywhere. The world was developing a dangerous dependence on a Chinese giant, and Washington decided to pull the emergency brake. But what nobody had anticipated was Huawei's resilience capacity.
Because while the West was celebrating its effective sanctions, something extraordinary was being prepared in China. September 2023, 5 years after Meng Wanzhou's arrest, 4 years after the American ban, Huawei discreetly launches online a new smartphone, the Mate 60 Pro. No big press conference, no marketing campaign, just a silent sale on its website. And yet, this phone will cause a geopolitical earthquake. Because according to NBC News and The Washington Post, independent tests revealed the impossible. The Mate 60 Pro is equipped with a 5G 7nm chip. Designed by HiSilicon, Huawei's subsidiary, manufactured by SMIC, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, a Chinese foundry. All of it 100% made in China. Understand the magnitude of what just happened. In 2019, the United States cut Huawei off from all access to advanced chips. The Taiwanese giant TSMC, which manufactured Huawei's Kirin chips, had to cease all collaboration. The West thought it had definitively killed Huawei's smartphone activity. But in 2023, Huawei reappears with a 7nm chip. According to TechInsights and Bloomberg, who dismantled the device, this chip represents a milestone in made-in-China design and manufacturing. Admittedly, it's technology that Apple was already using in 2018. But for China, cut off from the best lithography equipment, it's a monumental victory. The timing is delicious. According to The Washington Post, the phone is launched exactly while U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo visits China to discuss economic relations. China sends a message: "Your sanctions didn't stop us, they forced us to innovate." According to CNN Business, Jake Sullivan, U.S. National Security Advisor, states that Washington needs more information on its exact composition to determine if sanctions were circumvented. Translation: panic in Washington. Because if China can produce 5G chips despite the embargo, then the entire technological containment strategy collapses. The Chinese reaction is triumphant. According to NBC News, Chinese state media CGTN describes the Mate 60 Pro as proof that American suppression of Chinese companies is not a matter of national security, but an attempt to prevent Chinese companies from succeeding. In China, it's nationalist euphoria. Sales explode. Huawei becomes a symbol of technological resistance. But beyond the smartphone, what really worries the West is what this chip reveals. China is building a 100% independent technology supply chain, and Huawei is the spearhead of this strategy.
Here's the paradox that terrorizes Washington. Despite all the sanctions, all the bans, all the diplomatic pressure, Huawei still dominates the global telecom infrastructure market. The numbers are implacable. According to Dell'Oro Group in March 2025, cited by telecom lead and Statista, Huawei controls 31% of the global telecom equipment market in 2024, compared to 30% in 2023. Nokia follows at 14%, Ericsson at 13%. ZTE, another Chinese giant, holds 11%. But what's even more revealing, according to Dell'Oro Group in 2025, if we exclude China from the calculation, Huawei retains 21% of the global market.
And if we exclude North America, its market share explodes to 40%. Let that information settle in. Despite its expulsion from the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Sweden, Huawei controls 40% of the telecom market outside North America. Africa, Huawei. Latin America, Huawei. Middle East, Huawei. Southeast Asia, Huawei. According to Wikipedia, in 2019, Huawei held approximately 70% market share of infrastructure in Africa. And today, according to Huawei corporate information, the company operates in more than 170 countries, employs 208,000 people, and invested 179.7 billion yuan in R&D in 2024. That's 20.8% of its revenue. But Huawei hasn't just survived the sanctions. The company has accelerated its technological independence. Harmony OS, the in-house operating system initially launched to replace Android. According to Medium and DigiAlps in October 2024, Harmony OS Next no longer depends on any Android code. No more Linux kernel, no more Western programming languages. 100% Chinese development. Richard Yu, Huawei's executive director, declares at the launch, "We accomplished in 10 years what took the West 30 years to create. We have achieved complete autonomy in terminal operating systems." Ascend chips, designed to rival NVIDIA in artificial intelligence. According to Fortune Asia and Network World in 2025, Huawei plans to launch the Ascend 950 in 2026, then the Ascend 960 in 2027, and the Ascend 978 in 2028. The Kunpeng and Ascend ecosystem already has more than 8,500 partners and 6.65 million developers, according to official Huawei information. But what's really impressive is the financial effort. With nearly 180 billion yuan invested in R&D in 2024, that's 20.8% of its revenue. Huawei is no longer just following, it's inventing. Realize what's happening. By trying to suffocate Huawei, the West provoked exactly what it wanted to avoid: the acceleration of Chinese technological independence. Because Huawei is no longer just an equipment manufacturer, it has become a complete ecosystem: chips, operating systems, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. A Google plus NVIDIA plus Cisco Chinese version. So what is the real reason for Western fear of Huawei? It's not espionage. If it were, evidence would have been made public long ago. It's not technical quality either. Huawei is recognized as technologically competent even by its adversaries. The real fear, the existential fear, is this: the end of Western technological monopoly. Since 1945, the West, and primarily the United States, has controlled global digital infrastructure. IBM, Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, Google, Apple, Amazon, all American. This monopoly wasn't just commercial. It was strategic, military, geopolitical. Controlling infrastructure means controlling data flows. Controlling data means controlling information. Controlling information means controlling power. But with Huawei, this paradigm collapses. Because for the first time since the digital revolution, a non-Western company seriously threatens American domination in a critical technology, 5G. And it's only the beginning.
According to Telco magazine in September 2025, despite unprecedented geopolitical pressure, Huawei has extended its leadership outside China, gaining up to 3 market share points since 2021. The report concludes, this underscores both Huawei's cost competitiveness and rivals' inability to fully convert the political environment into market gains. Brutal translation: the sanctions failed. Worse still, they created a dynamic of global technological fragmentation. We no longer live in a world where one single technology dominates. We're entering the era of digital balkanization. A Western bloc with its own standards, a Chinese bloc with its own. And just in between, dozens of global South countries that must choose their side. But here's the final paradox. By forcing this choice, the West pushes entire countries toward China. Because Huawei offers 3 decisive advantages: competitive prices, absence of political conditions, and technology transfer. According to Wikipedia, Africa, 70% market share for Huawei. Southeast Asia, Latin America, the Middle East. Everywhere the West cannot or will not invest massively, Huawei fills the void. And these infrastructures, these antennas, these cables, these servers, structure tomorrow's alliances. Because 21st century geopolitics isn't only played with armies. It's played with fiber optic cables, 5G antennas, and data centers. And in this invisible war, Huawei is winning. Let's summarize. All sources: CNN, Reuters, BBC, NBC News, The Washington Post, Bloomberg, TechInsights, Dell'Oro Group, Gov.uk, US Department of State, Wikipedia, Huawei Corporate converge toward the same conclusion. 4 realities emerge. First observation: Meng Wanzhou's arrest in 2018 wasn't judicial. It was a disguised act of economic warfare. Second observation: successive 5G bans in the United Kingdom, Australia, Sweden, and elsewhere didn't weaken Huawei. They fragmented the global market and accelerated Chinese technological independence. Third observation: the Mate 60 Pro and its 7nm made-in-China chip prove that Western sanctions failed to stop Chinese innovation. They stimulated it. Fourth observation: despite everything, Huawei still controls 31% of the global telecom equipment market in 2025 and dominates largely outside the West. But the real question is Huawei spying? No. The real question is the West ready to accept that it's no longer the sole master of global technology? Because that's exactly what Huawei represents. Not a security threat, but an admission. The admission that Western monopoly on technological innovation is over. The admission that other powers, China at the forefront, can now compete, innovate, dominate. What if the fear of Huawei was just an admission? The admission that the West has already lost the war of the next decade. The data doesn't lie. The infrastructure is already in place. Geopolitical choices have already been made. The West is afraid, not of being spied on, but of being surpassed. And while it's still searching for culprits, the next war has already begun. Because this time, the battle is no longer in the antennas, but at the very heart of silicon. The chip war.
If this video made you think, if it shook your certainties about this invisible technological war, don't hesitate to share it with your friends. And you, what is your vision of this technological war? Do you think the fear of Huawei is justified? Or is it the admission of a collapsing Western monopoly? Are you ready to accept a world where technology is no longer dominated by a single bloc? Tell me in the comments. Let's debate together. I can't wait to read you. If you want to understand the real wars of the 21st century, those played in the shadows, away from the spotlight, subscribe and activate the bell. In the next episode, I take you to the heart of the most strategic battle of our time, the chip war, the one that will determine who dominates artificial intelligence, the global economy, and perhaps even the future of humanity. And you'll discover why a small island off the coast of China has become the most strategic place on the planet. Thank you for watching to the end. Don't forget, the next World War won't be fought with tanks. It will be played with nanometers. See you very soon for the next chapter.